Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime, here at my next Naruto manga chapter review. This one's going to be for the uh, Mitsuki one-shot. It's kind of hard to explain, it's a 47-page story just about Orochimaru and Mitsuki, as a kind of setup, kind of prequel type thing for the upcoming kind of continuous Boruto manga that's starting in a week or two. So yeah, this is an interesting one in that I kind of completed this kind of trilogy of stuff about Boruto, kind of explaining the main characters to us. So we obviously had Naruto Gaiden, which was very focused on Sarada, so like explaining kind of what she's going to be dealing with, who she is as a character, what her basic, powers, skills are going into the series. The Boruto movie, of course, was very focused on Boruto himself, and now we kind of get a little bit more detail, intrigue, mystery about the other member of that team, which is Mitsuki, who we really didn't know a lot about going into this, other than that he has these kind of stretchy powers with his arms, and he revealed at the end of the Boruto movie that, yeah, Orochimaru is my parent, and he's just like, father or mother, I don't know. And so this one was kind of set up with like it's going to reveal some of the mysteries behind Mitsuki and the whole Orochimaru connection. And overall, I did really like this one shot. I thought it was really good, really solid, interesting. I don't think it was like utterly amazing, like one of the best chapters ever, but it really highlights how good of a character Orochimaru is. He's always really interesting when he's on panel, and seeing him here in a kind of position where they kind of lead you to believe that he's okay, he's up to his kind of villainous ways again, he's plotting something, but then they really turn it around at the end and he's just like more like a kind of concerned parent, like trying to guide his child in the right direction. And it was a really interesting take on the character. Very much kind of, I think, based off the Orochimaru that we kind of saw at the very end of the Naruto series, where he was more kind of supporting Sasuke from behind the scenes. He wasn't the focus anymore, but he was supporting Sasuke. That's the way I kind of see him now with Mitsuki, where he kind of wants to guide him, through his whole life, kind of like a parent, and that's what he's more interested now than jutsu power. Though I think power is still an aspect of it, as we'll get into. Um, but yeah, it was basically there's like four characters really in the book. There's Orochimaru, Mitsuki, older Mitsuki, and Suigetsu. But Suigetsu's only really in it at the start as part of Orochimaru's plan. It's mainly the other three characters that are like the focus of the story. So the basic premise for this is explaining to us what Mitsuki is. It's revealed over the course of the story that he's an artificially created human, part of a series of experiments that Orochimaru had been doing, creating other artificially created humans. The older Mitsuki, who's basically initially the villain of this kind of series, but he's just a guy as part of Orochimaru's plan, was one of them. And it's kind of implied that he's a sort of failed experiment, because the whole idea of these experiments was to create an artificially created human who has free will and is not just loyal to its creator and is not just kind of rogue against its creator because it was created, I suppose is what they're going for. The idea being that they'd eventually get a Mitsuki that could think for itself, that could make a decision between siding siding with or against its creator, or making a different choice. And the main kind of plot thing, the big twist at the end, is that when we start off this story, we see a kind of injured Mitsuki waking up, having no memories of what just happened. Suigetsu and Orochimaru inform him that Orochimaru and Mitsuki went out on a mission. This enemy that they called Log, which is this kind of samurai-like guy with a mask, attacked them, and he used this memory-stealing jutsu to basically steal his memories. And now they're going out on another mission to get those memories back, along with a couple of other little things that Orochimaru has planned. But it's later revealed that obviously this villain, Log, is actually the older Mitsuki, and that he was working with Orochimaru, and they've done this multiple times, that the reason that Mitsuki had his memories lost was actually because of the medicine that Orochimaru was giving him initially. So this was Orochimaru putting, the Mitsuki we know through this same test, this same series of events multiple times, gradually hoping that Mitsuki would make a decision that shows that he has free will. Because the implication is that this is the sixth the time we see it in this one shot is the sixth time that they've gone through this, and the implication is that the previous five times he's either sided with Orochimaru in saying like, no, Orochimaru is my father, I'm going to side with him, I trust him because he says these things to me. It's also implied that a couple of the other times he sided with the older Mitsuki, who, when they meet up, kind of talks to him about, like, Orochimaru, who does he think he is, creating artificial life, who is he to do that, like, what's the morality behind that, we shouldn't exist, we only exist to further his plans to create, vessels that have powers and so on, and would this older Mitsuki, convince the current Mitsuki to side against Orochimaru. But instead, what actually happens is that this time round, the sixth time, Mitsuki actually decides neither. He basically says, I'm not going to listen to either of you. And he activates this new Sage mode. Because Orochimaru said to him before that you have Sage power, but he activates it here. And it's a very interesting reveal, because it's a Snake Sage mode based on the kind of chakra, kind of the visuals of the chakra kind of coming off him, emanating off him, is in the shape of snakes. It kind of, the way it feels like to me, is the Ninetales mode that Naruto had in the very early parts of the series, where he's, his whole body would kind of just become engulfed in like orange chakra. But I assume in this case it's probably more like purple chakra or something like that, more fitting of a snake. That's what it feels like. But again, it is a different Sage mode than we've seen before, because obviously Kabuto had a Snake Sage mode. He was the first Snake Sage that we saw, but he didn't really have a kind of emanating chakra energy type effect to it. At the same time, neither does the Toad Sage mode that we've seen as well. So this is a new Sage mode that seems to be very energy based. It potentially is the it's telling us that Kabuto's Sage mode was incomplete, and that this is an actual completed version of that. But we don't get a whole lot about what the powers really are of it, other than that it makes him fairly quick and strong, and that he was able to very quickly snatch the key and scroll from Orochimaru, because that was part of what they were going there for, to steal back the embryo that the Mitsukis were made from, and then the key to opening the scroll, which in itself were just part of the plan. Because the way we end it is basically that Mitsuki steals the key and the scroll, runs off, and this is when the reveal comes out that it was all part of the plan, because Orochimaru and the older Mitsuki just stop fighting and basically say, like, I wonder what will happen this time, what did you put in the scroll this time? So Mitsuki, outside, away from the other two, basically opens it as the other two narrate basically the whole scheme that they had going on about the sixth time, the memory, the memory medicine to kind of allow them to repeat the same sequence of events a couple of times. But anyway, he basically says that, look, I love both of you as my children. Orochimaru says this. Because more than just the fact that I created you, you are my beloved children, as he's kind of been talking about this entire book. And it's really interesting what he talks about here, in that him being able to make his choice on his own, and not just have it be the case that he was created and so he just by definition listens to me all the time, that he made his own moment, is like he will be the kind of light in the darkness. He will change things because he's this artificially created being that has free will himself, and that's something special. And Orochimaru kind of has, I suppose, grown from just caring about jutsu and power to now actually being like, no, I can actually create living beings that have will of their own, and I can be a parent in my own way. and he's happy about this. The other Mitsuki is pretty happy about it as well. But they say that, it's not just going to be a thing that because he made his own choice, he's automatically going to walk down the path of light and it's all going to be great. They kind of talk about this idea that Mitsuki represents the moon, I suppose. That's kind of what his name means. They do this thing with the translation where there's like a dual meaning to his name, where one one translation kind of means like vessel, the other translation means moon, and it's kind of the transition from him just being the vessel, the created being that obeys everyone, to being the moon that kind of shines on its own. But that the idea being that for him to fully walk down the correct path that Orochimaru will be very happy with as a parent, he needs a son, S-U-N, not S-O-N, to, to be beside, to kind of, get the shine off, I suppose. That the idea, the sun shines off the moon and makes the moon bright. That's kind of what they're going for. And so when Mitsuki opens up the scroll, it's revealed that in the scroll is basically some files about Boruto. So it's basically a picture of Boruto, with the idea being that Orochimaru now believes that if Mitsuki is placed into some sort of a friendship or a squad with Boruto, that is the way for him to walk down the correct path. Now, it ends there fairly kind of suddenly with just this idea that he's changed from, being the vessel to being the moon and so on, which is a nice moment, of course. But it's a little bit weird that we didn't get just a final moment with Mitsuki where he had a sense of understanding about it. You see his expression change when he sees Boruto there, in that he's kind of like, okay, this is kind of the person I want to kind of be with. I suppose it's like a report on Boruto. It's like, says like top secret mission, and there's a picture of Boruto, and it's hard to fully tell if what's here is like a message from Orochimaru saying that your top secret mission is to become friends with Boruto, or if this is a kind of like news article type thing about Boruto, or just a file that Orochimaru put together on him. The exact, I suppose, nature of what we're meant to take away from the Mitsuki looking at the Boruto thing is a little confusing, but the general idea of just, I suppose what Orochimaru was saying before that does come across quite well, that the influence of someone like Boruto, the son of Naruto, has an impact. I think perhaps what it needed was Orochimaru to perhaps talk about Naruto and the fact that the son could continue that on. The big difference, I think, though, is that this is very clearly set before the Boruto movie, before Naruto Gaiden. So it's hard to fully know if, why Orochimaru thinks Boruto is so amazing, because it's really only the events of the Boruto movie that kind of change Boruto's perspective on things and makes him into the character that could, be the son for someone. But apart from a few little things about just the exact nature of what we're meant to take out of some of those, in general I thought it came across quite well. The twist really worked because Orochimaru has been a villain for most of the time. And I think what's interesting about it is that Orochimaru as a villain has never been, I suppose, redeemed. He's not a good guy anymore. He's just not a full-on villain anymore. And so he's always going to have that kind of unique personality where he can be quite harsh about things and shows a lack of understanding about things, and in general cares about power a lot but isn't obsessed with it anymore. But at the same time, it's interesting to get this other side to him where he's actually really being honest when he talks about, you're my beloved child and that sort of thing. So he was fascinating in this one shot as well. Mitsuki, I actually felt like he didn't come across overly well as a character, because the focus of the story was more on explaining him rather than actually explaining who he is. So I still don't feel like we have the best judge of his character, but coming out of this, he's now an interesting character going into the Boruto manga, in that they all have their own unique powers now, which is very interesting. So that, as I said at the start, we now have a little bit on each of these three characters going in. Sarada has the Sharingan. she also has Sakura's strength and her kind of chakra strength kind of thing. So she has effectively the skill, the potential to be like Sasuke and Sakura in one. Boruto has like the talent to like basically learn anything that Sasuke had, and I suppose the chakra reserve eventually of Naruto, and a lot of these other new techniques. He has a lot of the different elemental styles down already, especially with his new Rasengan technique, which I assume will just continue to get better and better as it goes on. And now Mitsuki is revealed to, in addition to his stretchy powers, he also has this Sage mode that at some point he will master, we assume. But I think for the early parts of the Boruto series is probably going to be more of a thing like Naruto's Nine-Tailed mode in part 1, where most of the time it activates in the heat of the moment, like not fully like called upon by him. So that's, I think, the role that technique is going to fill in this series when, Team Boruto is put in a really tight situation. Like, Mitsuki's probably going to be the one to go like crazy and get them out of it more so than anyone else. Like, I know a lot of people have been thinking straight away of like just the way down the line potential of all of these characters, and that like Sarada Mangekyo Sharingan and all of this sort of stuff, like Toad Sage Boruto or whatever way they'll go with it. But I think for right now, Mitsuki, like this stage mode, has the potential to be like his really powerful move. But it was just a setup for that sage mode rather than a full-on explanation. But yeah, I'm pretty much going to end it there. There's not a whole lot else I really want to talk about. Suigetsu was in it, and he was fun at the start. Little action scene where Mitsuki showed off his his basically his Luffy powers from One Piece. But in general, he's just working with Orochimaru. I think if there was a negative, it would be just perhaps that they still haven't really explained like why Orochimaru is just allowed to like be, and like no one's after him about what happened. Like obviously, like Orochimaru is setting things up so that his son Mitsuki can be, can have a life in the Leaf Village, and like we don't really know if everyone is aware of that. Like, I suppose the idea basically is at the end of the Boruto movie, like, Mitsuki saying to Sarada and Boruto that Orochimaru is my father is like the big reveal of that. Does Naruto know who his parent is or whatever? But I assume that will be addressed in the Boruto manga when it begins. But yeah, I'm just going to end by just talking about some of the stuff I'll be doing coming up. The Boruto manga, as far as I'm aware, is not out next week because Shonen Jump is taking a break for some holiday in Japan, but it will be in the next issue, as far as I'm aware, which coincidentally is also the week that canon returns to the Naruto anime. So I will be reviewing the Boruto manga monthly as it comes out, and I'll also be reviewing the last few episodes of the canon Naruto anime, in addition to just various other stuff that comes out Naruto-wise. I'll be continuing, of course, my read-through of the manga. Next video will be volume 14, I believe. That'll be coming out in the next couple of days. So a lot of Naruto stuff coming on my channel, so if you guys are up for that, definitely stick around. But other than that, in the comments let me know what your thoughts were on this one-shot chapter, your thoughts on Mitsuki, the Sage mode, just a lot of the mystery, I suppose, around Orochimaru and so on, and just some of your thoughts going into the Boruto manga. But other than that, that's been the review. Thanks for watching, and bye.